Hey everybody, Seth Campbell here again with the new Segue Says podcast. Well, this week we're going to feature two very popular songs from two different eras. The first of which is very timeless, and the second has plenty of potential to become timeless yet. So the first is Landslide by Fleetwood Mac, who I'm very excited that I'm going to see perform on Friday. And the second is Say by John Mayer. And these two songs are both very popular requests at the piano bar. So combining them into a segue it was a split-second decision the first time I did it, but it worked so well because it pleases both crowds, both the Fleetwood Mac type crowd and the John Mayer type crowd, that I've been doing it quite a bit ever since then. Now, again, these are songs you probably know, definitely, but just to give you a small taste of each, Landslide was originally on the album Fleetwood Mac, which was actually the 10th album by Fleetwood Mac. The first album was also called Fleetwood Mac, but it's now referred to as Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac. It's a long story. But this wasn't exactly a hit single at the time. It was popular among fans, but the hit single version of it was from The Dance in 1997, which I mentioned last week in reference to Lindsey Buckingham and his songs. It was brought back into popularity, oddly enough, by a cover by the Smashing Pumpkins, which I've heard, and it's interesting. I'll give it that. But that brought a re-interest into Fleetwood Mac's version of it, and when they reunited in '97, they released a single, and that's the version you hear on the radio a lot. It's a live version, very broken down and acoustic as the song usually is. And of course, it's one of Stevie Nicks' lead vocals, but fortunately, it's actually low enough in her vocal range that I can sing it without changing the key. And it goes a bit like this. Take this love, take it down. I climb a mountain and I turn around, and I saw my reflection in the snow-covered hills, and the landslide brought it down. There's another verse, but the chorus, this is my favorite part of the song, is, well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I built my life around you, but time made you bolder. Children get older, and I'm getting older too. Again, I'm certain you know it because it's been covered by so many different artists and is used in so many different places. And it's just a beautiful, sad song. And Say by John Mayer is, of course, ubiquitous. It's actually, the lead is, I believe, a ukulele. But I've done my best to replicate it on the piano. Wasted honor, every little past frustration, take out all your so-called problems, better put them in quotations, say what you need to say, say what you need to say, say what you need to say. 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 So that's the first chorus of that. Now these songs are at slightly different tempos. Say is close to being double time of Landslide, if you choose to look at it that way. But they're both in B flat, and they're both working with the same B flat major scale. So that's going to be our point of commonality here. Now, this is one of those segues that, as I said, the mood definitely changes. Landslide is I want to say sad, but it's difficult to tell. With many things Stevie Nicks writes, it's a little difficult to tell what she's talking about. The emotion gets across, but not always the message. And I have no problem with that. It's just her style. So telling what the lyrical mood of her songs is can be a little difficult, but it's definitely a little more down and relaxed, whereas Say is, sort of a more positive affirmation. So you only want to do the segue one way, but it works just as well either way. And what I use as the determining factor when I perform this is, as I said, hardly a night goes by when one or the other of these songs isn't requested. I don't think yet I've had a night where both are requested, oddly enough. But usually one or the other is requested, and whichever one is requested is the one that I play first, just so they know that I'm listening to them and paying attention to their requests. So what I'm going to do first is demonstrate Landslide into Say, and then we'll do Say into Landslide, because it requires a little bit more of a leap of logic. But you have the end of Landslide, and you have to sort of tack a few chords on, because you could end this just about on any chord in the sequence if you chose to. But this is the last part of the song, which is the first verse repeated. I'm just going to go to the second half of that. If you see my reflection in the snow. Hit a wrong note there. Boy, does that ruin the mood. See my reflection in the snow covered hill. Well, maybe the landslide will bring it down. Well, the landslide will bring it down. Some people ended on the C minor there. It down, just the 2 minors. Some people walk it back up to E, and I've actually heard Fleetwood Mac in different live performances end it in different ways. You could end it on the 5. Landslide, bring it down. Or you could go from the 5 back to the 1. Bring it down. And that's essentially what we're going to do. We're basically going to combine the last two, because as I said, Say is in the same key and using the same scale, so we want to get to the 1. And of course the 5 leads to the 1. So you could use either of the last 2 endings that I've shown. And of course the beginning of Say is this ukulele riff on the right hand. Unfortunately, that riff works if you're just sustaining a B flat for a couple bars in a pedal progression. So it's easy just to basically use the 1 chord as a pivot and move straight into Say. And this is how you do that. Well, the landslide bring it down. Just sort of fade it in, really, as much as you can on a piano. All your wasted honor, every little past frustration, and there you have it. Now that's if you want to start with Landslide, and in doing that you're bringing the mood upward from where you started. Now if someone requests Say as opposed to Landslide, I'll start with Say and finish with Landslide, which calms the mood down. Now Say fades out in the original recording, but there's a fairly easy way to end it. Now, the first couple of choruses and verse progressions are a real simple, B flat, E flat, G minor, F, with lots of tensions and extra chord tones in there. But the last chorus, oddly enough, changes the progression. Someone told me once that in every John Mayer song, there's something he throws in to remind people that he went to Berkeley. In Waiting for the World to Change, it's the bizarre 4 minor horn section. In Heartbreak Warfare, it's going to the flat 6 and flat 3 for the bridge. There's always one of those moments. And this, I think, it's a little more subtle, because some people I know haven't even noticed it, that it's a different progression. But it's still that, the I Went to Berkeley moment from John Mayer. So next time you listen to his songs, see if you can spot, whatever song you're listening to, see if you can spot the moment, because they pretty much all have them. The last chorus is G minor, B flat, E flat, and E flat holds for 2 bars. And that is actually going to become relevant. Just remember this, because sometime way in the future, there's another segue involving Say that is going to revolve around that different chorus, much more than this one does. Right now it's only important that it ends on the E flat, which is the 4 of the B flat. And you might be thinking, the 4, wouldn't you want to go back to the 1 or to the 5? Well, no, because the first chord of Landslide is not the 1, the B flat. It's actually the 4, the E flat. So this time, the 4 chord is going to become our pivot. And this is this is very interesting, because very often segues that go both ways use the same principle. It'll be the same chord and you're just choosing which way you go. This time, you have to adapt a different approach, which makes this really unique. And it's in some ways unfortunate that you don't want to play the segue both ways in a standard in and out form, but it again comes down to the mood and the emotions you're trying to project. But you have the last chorus of Say, which, as I said, fades out on the record. But the way I like to end it, say what you need to say, say what you need to say, say what you need to say, say what you need to say. So you hold on that 4 chord. And, if I'm ending this, maybe I'll go back to the 1 for a nice ending, or you can leave it hanging on the 4, which also gives a very nice emotional cliffhanger almost, waiting to see where you'll go with the next song. So, but for the purposes of this, we're going to end it on the 4, because like I said, Landslide starts on the 4. So, here's how this would sound. Say what you need to, say what you need to, say what you need to say, say what you need to say, say what you need to say, say what you need to say. As I had mentioned before, Landslide is a little bit slower, so you need to allow that little breath after the last chord to fade in, much the same way you would do with Say, even though that's fading in faster. It's easier to speed up suddenly than to slow down suddenly in music. And I've talked about this a little bit before, more in the context of building up versus breaking down in terms of arrangements. But it's a similar concept. And so you just want to be aware when you're doing 2 songs that are sort of have the same character in terms of the harmony. The harmonic character is pretty much the same, but the tempos are different. You just want to be aware of making sure you leave just enough room for it to be subtle and smooth. You don't want to say what you need to say. I mean, you could do that. It's not bad, but it's a little less smooth. It feels a little more rushed, as if the person playing it wasn't quite preparing. And so, it's a matter of taste, but if you ask me, you want to leave just that little breath, just to allow things to readjust and for the audience to realize that, they're standing on new ground now. And that works both ways. So that is how this particular segue works. And it's almost 2-in-1, because rather than a traditional in and out, this is one that you would be very direct in choosing which way you're going to go. So hopefully you've enjoyed this, and hopefully I'll see you at one of my upcoming piano bar gigs, and you can pick which either of these songs you like best, and just know that the other will be coming right behind it. Of course, maybe it won't. Maybe I'll fool you. But either way, you got to come down to see. So, hope you enjoyed this. Thanks as always for watching. Love you guys. And I'm always glad to hear that people enjoy these, because it means a lot to me that, just my basically unchecked ego trip that I do every week is actually informative to people. So thanks so much for watching. I will see you next week.